Okay, well, welcome edition. You know what? We were originally on a Growth Monday, but it's Wednesday. So it's Wonderful Wednesday. It's Wonderful Wednesday, and I've got a great panel with me today. I've got the wonderful Rachel Druckenmiller. We're going to talk about maintaining resilience as healthcare, HR, and recruitment professionals. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Hey, thanks so much, Rollis. I'm excited to be here and have this conversation today.
Yeah, excited to have you. And then I also have the great Jonathan Palmar. He's a video content creator with the Shea Bottom team. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here as always, Rollis.
Well, I'm always tickled pink to have you, and I'm excited to have Rachel on for the first time. We tried to have her on a couple of weeks ago. For whatever reason, Restream and LinkedIn weren't jiving together, so we're doing a retake. But this time, our audience gets all three of us, because that was going to be the two of you. So
what a treat!
There we go.
Bonus.
So hopefully our audience sees that as a bonus, and I think they will. Joanne says we're live. So let us know where you're signing in from. What city, what state, what country. We'd love to hear from you, interact with you. We do read the comments throughout the session. We're going to talk about resilience. And even if you're not in healthcare, resilience really in any field, I'm sure these principles will still apply. But that's where a lot of my audience is. So that's where we're going to kind of focus it on the healthcare audience. So I appreciate you, Jonathan, coming on, and you're gonna customize some of your content to what we're doing here in healthcare. And then Rachel, I really want to say thank you for coming on as well, a second time, right, to do this show. So really appreciate you doing that for us today. And we've already got folks coming in. Actually, even Rachel's already on top of it. Rachel's on top of it, man. You're already commenting. That's awesome. And Eric Silverman's already joined us. Great to have you, Eric, and everybody out there. So let's get right into our first subject, which is talking about resilience. Can we define resilience? Because a lot of times we talk about different terms. We don't really define what they are. What does resilience mean to you, Rachel?
I'd say for me, it's this ability to bounce back and rise back up when we get knocked down. And I add a little bit of something to it that I don't know is necessarily in like an official dictionary definition, but that we emerge on the other side wiser and stronger in some way. So that's kind of my interpretation of what resilience is.
I like that. How about you, Jonathan? What do you think?
For me, resilience is it's so much about just like silencing that little voice in your head that says quit, right? When I hear the word resilience, I think re-silence, like re-silencing that little voice in our head that's saying, oh, well, you want to watch TV, you want to eat this, you want to do something else. You don't want to be doing that thing that you know is going to take you to the next level. So for me, resilience, silence that voice.
I like that. In fact, I see somebody in the audience who likes that too. Look at that.
There we go. That's a handsome man. Thanks, buddy.
So speaking of, okay, so I like this. And I whenever I think of resilience too, I don't know why I think of this, but I think of bouncing back. Just whatever it is that you've been kind of set back from, you're just bouncing back. And I like Les Brown. He says, if you basically you get thrown down and you're flat on your back, he says as long as you can look up, you can get up, kind of thing. So I like the idea of being able to bounce back. And Sri, welcome, Sri. Sri's also joining us as well. So how about maintaining resilience? What do you think is the key to maintaining resilience, Rachel, from your perspective?
There's a lot, and this is coming from somebody who has completely burned out and, as you both know, gotten hit by a truck and recovered from that. And for me, I think it's a lot of things. I think first and foremost, it's surrounding ourselves with community, because we cannot rise up continually in the face of adversity without leaning on the support of other people. So I've had to learn that as somebody who isolated myself for a lot of my life and did not ask for help, was not willing to speak up when I was struggling, felt like I got knocked down and like I had to, through sheer willpower, just like pull myself back up. And I lived a lot of my life that way. And I've discovered over the past 4.5 years, especially, gosh, it's so much easier to get back up when you have other people that can support you. So I'd say first and foremost, it's being in community, being an intentional, life-giving community. I'd say another thing is choosing to shift your mindset to say, you know what? Typically when we're experiencing resilience, we've we've gone through something that maybe we initially resented or had some resistance toward. So part of being resilient is shifting from resistance to acceptance and saying, you know what? I may not like this thing that happened. I may not like it at all. I may wish that it had never happened, but I can choose to accept it so that I can move forward and not waste any more energy being mad at the thing that happened that I don't like, because that's exhausting and unproductive.
Yeah. I love that.
You know, what do you think about that?
Well, you know,
Does that resonate?
what really stuck with me when you said that is I'm thinking that everybody, I think, goes through that, where at first you don't want to accept it. But I think where some people are more skillful than others is how long do you stay in that space. And to me, how it's landing on me is that you're saying, look, you may feel that way, but get out of that as fast as you can of not accepting it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and especially because we're, especially talking to healthcare folks and people that are in healthcare, there's a grieving process that every human has experienced as a result of the change around us over the past 18 months. And part of resilience is giving yourself permission to feel all the things in the grieving process, to experience shock, to go through denial, to be frustrated and angry, even to experience depression and low energy and a lack of motivation, so that you can kind of complete that cycle and then activate your own sense of agency internally and say, you know what? I'm not going to choose to stay here. I let myself go through that. I let myself ride that ride, but I'm not going to stay on this merry-go-round. I'm going to get off of it. I'm going to make a decision to take an action to help myself get out, which might be asking for help. It might be, reaching out to somebody. It might be listening to a song that elevates your mood. It might be journaling. It might be whatever your form of spiritual support is, but just like making the choice to not stay stuck and mired in whatever the thing is that has knocked you down. It's a choice.
So what you're telling me, still don't be afraid to go through the experience. So we still go through all those stages. Don't try and shortcut it, right?
Correct.
So Jonathan, well, how does that land on you when you're hearing what Rachel is saying? How does that relate to your experiences when you've gone through tough periods? What's your process look like?
I notice that when it comes to burnout, quitting, all of those different things, what I started to recognize is I kind of like wrote down, okay, this is what I do in a day. And I think that's it's a very powerful practice, just so that we can really focus on like, how can we optimize our time? We're all so busy, right? When I really consider all of the things that I do, I really started to focus on, okay, why does it seem like all of the things that I'm the most consistent with, I have least emotion attached to? Things as simple as taking a shower, going to the gym, eating a healthy diet, cooking, administrative tasks. The things that I tie the least emotion to, I tend to do with resilience without any stoppage or quitting or anything like that. So that's why I have such a rough relationship with the word motivation. A lot of people feel like they need to be motivated to do something. A lot of people feel like they need to be inspired to do things. And for me, as soon as I start detaching emotion from things, I notice that I could do them for a lot longer and sustain them for a lot longer because there's low emotional investment in it. The things that I feel the most passionate about, the things that I care about the most, those are also the things that I burn out from the quickest. Those are the things that I feel I need a break from the most. So I feel like even in the most, the things that I care about the most, in my process, not people, but in my process, the less I emotionally invest in them, the more effective I could be for longer.
Interesting. Now, I have a question for you, Rachel. You talked about going through those stages. How long is healthy to go through those stages to get to that acceptance part, or does it just differ for everyone?
It's funny. In my field, in the area of well-being, a lot of people are looking for prescriptions. And one of the things that I have been consistent, what Jonathan's talking about is consistency, right? Like anything that's consistent, that's kind of embedded, that's automated, takes less effort. It takes less decision fatigue, right? You don't have to think about it. It's just part of who you are and what you do. So when I think about, I guess, remind me of the question. I got a little distracted there for a second. Remind me what you're asking.
My question was, how long should we stay in that space? How long
should we
healthy?
stay? Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
I went down a rabbit trail.
No, I got distracted.
It varies. It really varies by person. And that's what I was saying. People want a prescription. Like, all right, so you should be in the anger stage for 2 weeks, and then you go to the depression stage for 3 weeks, and then you should just pull it together and make a decision and move on. The thing is that grief is not linear. So you can be at a place where you've made a move, right? You've experienced sadness, you've experienced anger, you've experienced denial. You make a decision, you start to pull yourself out, and then that thing doesn't work. And then you might go back to frustration. And so I think what I find to be most helpful is to give people permission for their process, permission for your process to be whatever your process is. If you notice yourself staying in that place of despair and depression for so long that it's affecting your day to day, that it's affecting your ability to go through the day with any kind of energy or any kind of joy, that's when, ideally before then, but for sure by then, that's the time to reach out to a therapist, reach out to a friend, reach out to a spiritual advisor, reach out to somebody and let them know, hey, I'm having a hard time. Like, open up and then allow that to go wherever it goes. But you have to first acknowledge and ask for it.
Makes sense. How about for you, Jonathan, from your perspective, what's a healthy time period for you when you're going through some struggles? A healthy time for you to go through those stages?
That's a really tough question because I think that just to be a little bit personal, like I do have a very chaotic process, especially when it comes to like stuff like that. I feel like for the most part, I do what a lot of us are guilty of doing, where you suppress it, you shove it down, you tell yourself it's not a problem, it's not a problem, it's not a problem. But there's always a breaking point. There is a point that you will inevitably reach where you recognize I cannot. Now it's to the point, and it's so interesting. It's like it eats away at you slowly, right? It eats away at you slowly where, it might be the smallest thing, but it's almost like my laptop. I should have, for anybody that's watching, my laptop, like the screen is completely destroyed, right? Like I can't see anything. The moment that it cracks, I should have told myself, I need to fix this computer because although I can work on it right now, soon it's going to get to the point where the entire screen is not visible.
Yeah.
But I put it off, it got a little worse. I put it off, it got a little worse. And now it's to the point where I can't even work on it at all. And I think that very much in the same way, we have a habit of doing the same. We have a habit of not addressing the challenge when it is a challenge, when it is a problem. We wait too long, and then now we can't even function at all. So the moment when it becomes an issue, that's the right time to do it. But I also understand and empathize. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Sometimes in our business, in the healthcare business, we say, well, these things are unique to us. But in a lot of cases, it's not that they're unique because it's really the same range of human emotion that we go through. So that's why I like to have folks from other industries come on the show. And I know in your case, you talk to a lot of healthcare industries, folks in healthcare specifically, Rachel. What's some of the feedback that you've gotten as an outsider looking in, talking to these folks who are in healthcare? What are some things you've been hearing back from them?
One of the main things that I've heard is thank you for validating my experience and not just coming at me with some Pollyanna positivity nonsense telling me to just get over it. Like that's because when someone like me comes in, there's a perception, right? If you're an inspirational speaker or whatever, that you're just going to come in and talk a bunch of platitudes and people are going to walk away changed. And I do everything I can to try to break that mold when I get to be with people because that's not helpful. So I think validating the experience that people are having, speaking into it, meeting them where they are and making them feel seen. Like when people feel seen, when they feel understood, they feel safe. And when they feel safe, then they're more inclined to want to open up.
Yeah.
So, I've seen, Rollis, like this really cool experience. I was working with a client that's in the hospice and home healthcare space. So just you can imagine how grueling the past 18 months have been.
Absolutely.
For their industry. And so I was doing a virtual workshop with them not quite a year ago. And we brought together groups of, they had nurses and all different people, probably about 100 people on this Zoom experience, this workshop. And one of the questions I asked them to talk about a a meaningful moment, a time where they experienced a moment of meaning in their work in the previous, at that point, previous 5 months. And then they went into small groups and they talked about it. And then when they came back, the first person who shared, she raises her hand and she goes, she worked in the pediatric unit of this particular organization. And she shared a story of a 19-year-old patient that they had, terminal brain cancer patient. And because of COVID, they couldn't, be with her. Her case, manager, nurse, couldn't be with her consistently. So they said, what could we do? They reached out to her dad. What could we do to make her feel cared for and special in this time? He said she really loves flowers. So twice a week, her caseworker would come by and deliver a bouquet of flowers from Trader Joe's on her porch.
Nice.
And her father would bring them out to her. And then the part that got everybody to just, cry like someone was cutting onions was when the woman then shared the day after this young woman died, her father reached out to the company to thank them for how they'd shown up. And he said, the day that my daughter passed, you brought lilies, and lilies were my daughter's favorite flowers.
Oh, wow.
So thank you for that. And it was just, it's like, you could say they're just flowers, right? But they're not, right? It was symbolic of what it is to care for and to be intentional and to be thoughtful and to take that extra step to ask what would really make the biggest difference here. And then coworkers, they moved each other. They were sharing stories with each other and reminding themselves about why the work they do is so important. And I think that when we're in crisis, when we're in the midst of what's going on in the world right now, that to remind each other of why the work we do matters is one of the most powerful things organizations can do to foster organizational and team resilience.
Wow. Love that. That's a powerful story. It really speaks to, us not sometimes knowing the impact that we're making at that moment, because that person has no idea that those particular flowers were this person's favorite flowers. So it kind of goes back to me when I'm having interactions with folks and just choosing what I choose to focus on or say to that person. If I can spend that time being positive, that may stick with them for a very long time, or I could do something that's negative, and that could also stick with them for a very long time. Imagine if that person just didn't think it was important to send the flowers to begin with. Yeah. I'll just skip a day. Yeah. But it was incredibly impactful. That's amazing. So, Jonathan, I'm curious, how was this landing on you? Hearing this, that was kind of a tearjerker story. The reason why I wasn't as involved in the story is I had something go wrong with the production on the back end, and I'm fixing it as you're talking, and I'm hearing it as you're talking, and it was impactful for me, but it may have set on Jonathan a little differently. So I want to hear, what do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes Rachel so special. There's at this point, I've probably talked to hundreds of clients. Everybody has a unique story, but it's like, I can't help it. It's like almost every time after I get off the phone with Rachel, I have to cry, because it's just like either she'll bring a story, I'll be reminded of a time that she was singing, something just about her. And Rachel, are you a Pisces? You're March baby?
Cancer.
February, late February?
I'm a Cancer.
Okay, a water sign, So it's like water, right? It is a water sign. I feel like we had, or maybe it's that we're a type 3. We're both type 3s. It was something where we both have something in common. So it's like there is like a deeper understanding of how both of us work. But it's like, Rachel's one of those special people where you're gonna cry, but you're gonna wake up. You're gonna realize you're either gonna have deeper purpose when you're done with her, or you're gonna realize something about yourself or the people around you that you didn't see prior, right? So powerful. So yes, listen to that story. It's a tearjerker. Yeah, Rollis, the sky's blue. I know. Yes.
Okay.
I'm well in tune with that. Yes. But to get more to the technical side of it, yes, like the amount of impact that any of us can have on anyone. And that's why video content really became my thing. It was this belief within me that because I'm not a 30-year expert, because I'm, just starting out, I don't have anything valuable to share. I don't have anything good enough to share. Why would somebody want to listen to me on camera? That was really my belief. But when you start recognizing the fact that it's not about that, it's about what if one person, I deliver the message in a very specific way and it connects with that one person, right? that
Yeah.
is enough to validate its existence in the universe. So you never do know until you put yourself out there. And I find that it's rarely about skill. It's way more about execution. The people that actually do the thing are the ones that make it. And it's not the skill set, because the skills can be learned. Execution can also be learned, but I do find that people like Rachel, Rollis, they're the go-getters. And I really do feel like, listen, stop talking yourself out of it and just do it.
Appreciate that. So one of the things I want to do is I want to speak to, I'm reminded here, we've got healthcare, HR, and recruitment professionals. So I want to speak to maybe some things that they're facing right now, and then I want you guys to give me your best advice, because I know the folks who are going to be watching this will appreciate that. But before we do that, I want to do what Jonathan was doing. I want to take me a quick little water break here. Rachel, you got a little water?
Yeah, got myself my straw. This is, by the way, if you ever want to get your voice to be clear before you're talking, there's something called as a singer, you learn ways to help open up your voice. And so I have these silicone straws, and if you kind of like blow into the straw and create bubbles, and you do that for like 30, 60 seconds, it actually opens up and creates warmth in your voice. So if you ever notice you have a scratchy throat,
Yeah.
but before you're shooting a video or getting on stage or doing anything like that, it really helps create a warmth and just like a depth to your voice.
This is great content for our healthcare, HR, and recruitment professionals, who I would heavily, heavily encourage you to show up on video, right? To show up on video, because a lot of these recruiters are not doing that. And so I think they should. So you're saying if I had a straw, I would blow into it, make some bubbles.
Like make bubbles, kind of like you're a little kid.
Yeah, like I was a little kid. Okay, I'm going to try that. I don't have a straw right now, but I'm going to try it later. Very good.
It works.
I love that. Okay, so those of you who are recruiters, if you're in HR, we're going to have some really good content here for you here in just a second. In the meantime, I do have a quick question for you, though, before I move on. You know I have to ask you this, right? Okay, so Rachel, if you had to choose, you have to choose between one of these two. Would you rather be a slow bird or a fast little fish? And those are the comments.
Fast little fish.
Yeah, the comments I want you to answer it to, and Jonathan, I want you to answer it as well. So why did you pick the fast little fish?
I just have this like energy and this fire in me that propels me to move. And I relate more to that. Sometimes I slow down and reflect and do that kind of stuff. But I just feel like my nature is to just like kind of be a force of nature.
I like it. So Jonathan, what about you? Would you rather be a fast little fish, or a big slow bird?
By far a big slow bird. Because with birds, first it's like recognition of the fact that as a fast little fish, I'm pretty sure, right? But maybe one of you can confirm with me. Fish always have to be moving in order to basically like have the oxygen moving within their bodies. So for a fish to just stop moving altogether, it dies. Is that correct?
I don't know that, but it sounds very plausible.
Maybe somebody in the audience.
Sure.
Maybe somebody in the audience can confirm that. It's like it's a part of like its oxygen filtration system. That's why you'll never notice a fish just like completely sitting there. There's always some degree of movement, right?
I like that.
Where a bird can glide. A bird does not need to be in constant movement. It can literally use its momentum to flap its wings and just glide. Just like enjoy the journey. You're still moving forward even though you're not working, right? Because because you're gliding. You're gliding. And I feel like there's so much power in that. We're always moving, go, 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 have to do more. Number one, you miss the scenic view that I'm sure these birds get to appreciate. But also, once you've worked and you've done enough work, isn't it nice to know that you could just glide a little bit and enjoy the process? And so I'd say that where I am right now in my own journey, I need to sometimes glide a little bit and not be so concerned with the go, go, go of the process.
Well, guys in the comments, I want to know what you guys think. Whether you're watching the replay or the live, I want to know what would you choose, to be a fast little fish or a big slow bird? Okay, now let's get into some of my questions. As an HR professional, a recruitment professional, let's say I'm in healthcare. I'm getting more requisitions than I've ever gotten before. It's just more work than I can handle. I've asked recruiters throughout the country, and it's not uncommon for some recruiters to have as many as 70, 80, 90, and sometimes even over 100 requisitions, positions they need to fill ASAP. And every hiring manager wants their positions filled ASAP. So I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I don't know if I'm going to continue. What advice would you give me?
Well, I actually worked with the talent acquisition team of a major bank and did a workshop with them earlier this year, and we talked about this.
Okay.
And I interviewed some of their recruiters. And so a couple things I would suggest, just questions to think about. One is to there's always people in any group that seem to have something figured out that maybe others haven't arrived at yet. Some people who seem to be managing things more effectively. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is even among their teams then to ask, hey, what's working better than anything else for you in terms of prioritizing and setting boundaries? So getting people into a conversation based on an appreciative question, a generative question. So, hey, what's working better than anything else for you, and learning from each other. Another thing that came up in our conversation was, and I wanted to pull it up so I quoted it correctly, but using a phrase like this, I can appreciate you wanting to get all these positions filled, and I'll try to get as many filled as I can. I support your entire business line because sometimes people are recruiting, for different people. And we have a goal of hiring, X number of people this month. How can we come up with a plan that'll work for both of us? So that kind of arriving at that commonality point, how can we come up with a plan that'll work for both of us? I think a lot of times we teach people how to treat us, and we don't realize that by the nature of how we allow people to treat us, that we send them certain messages. And sometimes just by speaking up and saying, hey, what's working well for you? How might we come up with a plan that works, for both of us? To be willing to advocate for yourself and say, hey, if you're feeling stuck, I really value your input and guidance. Can you help me prioritize these openings? Can you help me prioritize the order? What really is most important here? Because there's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so many of these things I can do at once. So it's really, I obviously believe in getting unmuted. And for me, that's one of the ways I think people can do that in organizations, is to speak up and to advocate for yourself, to find out what's working from other people, and to find a point of commonality.
I like that. That's pretty strong. Jonathan, what would you say to that? How would you handle the situation? Here you are, you've got, in your case, you got way more videos that you can post, or you got more clients you got to get with about their videos, and it just seems overwhelming. What are some things you would suggest? Like, what are some of the strategies you've used to help you with resiliency during those times when you feel a little overwhelmed?
Even in the context that you initially presented, this is evergreen. This is an issue that every company has at every level. This whole idea of, okay, even like Rollis, even you pitching me that scenario, the initial one, the first thing that was going through my mind is why? Why does that individual have that much stuff to do, that much responsibility? It just seems, how could any CEO or any, manager, management team member, what have you, look at that scenario and say, this is a fair situation? So for me, when I see an employee, when I see somebody else struggling and they seem to be overwhelmed, instead of asking, why is it not done? I'm asking, okay, why are they not able to execute? But I want to really understand what it is that they're experiencing or going through. I think so often we just judge the final product. We're not judging their process. Or, are they overwhelmed? Because how many of us will find ourselves overwhelmed in a scenario and we don't execute because we don't even know where to start? There's just too much on our plates. So part of it is us communicating it, but also how did they arrive at this place, and really understanding them, the person, asking why is this not getting done? Not just, well, it's not done. Well,
Right.
Why is it not done? What's this person going through? So I think it's a lot more in the hands of management to identify and ask the right questions and not put that on them to begin with, right? Let's be reasonable. So yeah, I'd say I'm very late to the process of asking that employee specifically. More so, I'd love to ask their management.
Yeah,
first.
that is a very fair question, and anyone who I would say that to outside the industry is like, what? So yeah, I totally get that, but it's very commonplace. It's very commonplace. I've seen it more often than what I would like. And just
How does it get to that point, though? How does it get there?
That's a great question. Sometimes there's issues that need to be fixed on the attrition side, right? Why are people leaving? Because a lot of times it isn't necessarily due to growth. It may be due to attrition. So that's a great question. And then the other thing is trying to do more with less. That's kind of a recurring theme throughout. I know in our industry, I don't know how well it affects other industries, but especially during times like COVID, when the reimbursements aren't as great, and maybe some of the elective surgeries have stopped, so things get tighter. How do we do more with less? And then those who are left, they don't want to be without a job too. They want to continue to flourish and stay with the organization. So some of them are actually afraid to say no. Let's talk about that. What about if you want to say no, or you want to say, can we work on this, but you're afraid to do it because you're afraid of the consequences of losing something, in this case, perhaps losing your job or your status. How does a person navigate that fear, that real fear of saying no? What do you think, Rachel?
I think whenever you're saying no to something, to one thing, you're saying yes to something else. So to say no to speaking up, you're saying yes to, I'm going to tolerate being exhausted and burned out and overwhelmed and having nothing to give to my family, or whatever it is, right? Like whenever, I think so much of it is having a sense of agency and owning and taking responsibility and accountability for the decisions that you make. And again, for how you allow people to treat you. And I think in HR, a lot of times, these are the helpers, right? Like we want to help people and we're the ones that we want to serve everybody else. And our identity is connected to the extent to which we can serve other people and help other people. And without the ability to help and serve other people, I don't know who I am. Like, that's why I think a lot of people fall into that trap, you know? And so I think it's just really important to recognize that, to ask yourself the question, by saying no to this, by saying no to advocating for myself, by saying no to asking for help, by saying no to leaving this job, what are you saying? What are you then saying yes to? And to have an honest conversation with yourself, not as a guilt trip, but just, this is not about condemnation. It's about conviction.
Right.
So can you be honest with yourself about that?
You know what? I like this. I like what you just said about when you're saying no, you're actually saying yes to something else. That's a good one. That's a clip right there. Okay, Jonathan, what do you think?
It's tough because I see power in both, and I understand both sides. I have historically suffered with not being able to say no to things with the guise that it's opportunity, right? A lot of us don't say no to things because, oh, well, what if it's a great opportunity for me? What if this great thing could come out of it? You know, and a lot of times we'll shoot ourselves in the foot. But also I find that the people that I respect the most are the ones that have the hardest, the most rigid boundaries. They're I'm not talking about people that are completely avoidant. I'm talking about the people that, you know, I know that, you know, when I ask them for it, if I really need it and it's really a priority, I know that I could get time with them.
Right.
But those individuals, they really understand and respect themselves enough and respect their time enough to say no to certain things. So I really try to model myself around that. And I think that, you know, like Rachel has said, articulated so beautifully, you know, when you say no to one thing, you say yes to something else. And I find 9 times out of 10, the things that you do say yes to, they just open you for better opportunities, you know, than that one thing. And honestly, anybody that I've ever said no to has not responded to it nearly as poorly as I thought that they would.
That's a good
which to
point.
me was very empowering. I was always afraid of the no because we're like programmed in our minds. It's like when you told your mom, like when your mom said no to something, when a teacher said no to something, but it's not like that necessarily when you're an adult. It does change. People are a little bit more reasonable, especially if they see how hard you're working and how much you're doing. So yeah, I'd say no, there's so much power in it. And it's always better than you think it'll end.
I 100% agree. You know, you reminded me of a book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. It's an old book. He's the one who wrote.
Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, he's the one who wrote.
Heck of a marketer.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. But this particular book, he talks about how, like, when we worry about things, sometimes we worry about things that have a very low probability of happening, first and foremost. And then number 2, what's the worst thing that can happen? So he actually, you know, whenever you're really worrying about something, he's like, okay, think about this. What's the probability of it happening? Number 1. And then number 2, What's the worst thing that can happen? Once you consider those two things, it kind of takes some of the power away from the worrying. I don't always remember to do it, but I thought it was good advice. What do you think, Rachel?
Yeah, I think it is, because also you'll realize if you take it to its logical conclusion of, okay, if this happened, all right, so let's say that happened, and then and then what would happen next? Okay, then this awful thing, and then this would happen. And you take yourself like 7 to 10 layers deep, and then you get to number 10, and you're like, do you really think that's going to happen? And you're like laughing at yourself because you're like, well, no, I'm not gonna. That's not going to happen.
Right.
And you start to be able to have a moment to like not take yourself so seriously and to recognize that, all right, the likelihood of me being able to get even to level 4, like I can do that. And there's also an unexpected reward. Like there was an HR leader that I did a workshop around burnout, and she came up to me like 6 months later and came back to a second installment of the same workshop with a different group and said, I'm not sure if I told you this, but after that last session, you made me realize something. The question I asked is, who gets the best of you and who gets what's left of you?
Ooh.
Wow.
I like that.
Was the question that she, let that, she kind of chewed on that a bit, and it prompted her to leave her job because she realized that she wasn't able to pick up her child from work. And when she would come and pick him up, unexpectedly, they'd be like, "Oh, is that your grandmother?" And it's like, "No, this is the mother, but she's so infrequently here that you didn't even realize it's the mother." And she's like, "I changed my job. I now have a 7-minute commute, and I get to take my child to and from school." And it was a hard decision to leave a job of like over a decade, but it was a good decision.
Yeah. Wow. That's impactful. Who's getting the best of you, and then who's getting the rest of you? And one of the things I will say too is for the employers out there is we're in front of, I don't remember what they call it. They gave it a name, but it's where it's going to be like it's going to be like a
Great Recession?
No, that's not recession. It's one where they leave. The great something. Someone in the comments, let me know what that is. Well, a bunch of folks are going to be quitting and leaving their job and going and get a different job. We're in front of that.
I've heard something about that.
Yeah. They've predicted
Great Resignation. The Great Resignation.
Great Resignation. Thank you. The Great Resignation. So we're in front of the Great Resignation right now. And what I try and, if I have an opportunity to share with clients, is that this is the best time to prepare. Whatever stuff, the reasons why people are leaving or dissatisfied, find out what those things are and try to start addressing them now so that when it does happen, it won't hurt your company as much. Now, the good news is you'll be able to acquire some employees, but I mean, this musical chairs thing doesn't help. It doesn't help that much, because now you got to bring these new employees. You have to train all over again. So and all that data, all that head knowledge from all those people who left that could have stayed, we can avoid all that. So I love what you're saying about who gets the best of you and who gets the rest of you. We may not be in a situation where our companies could perform better if we allow folks to be able to really be their best at work. So from your
Can I suggest one more thing,
Sure, please.
Rollis, that might be helpful?
Yeah.
A lot of people conduct exit interviews. So somebody leaves, all right, they're already out the door. Why did you leave? What didn't you like? Whatever.
Right.
There's another thing that some people are likely familiar with, others not, but conducting stay interviews. So to find out why are people sticking around, like, hey, you're still here. You've been here for 5 years, or you've been here for a year. What is it that's keeping you here? Another powerful question, how can we best support you right now?
Yeah.
What if every company asked that question of their people and then acted on it? Oh my goodness, it would change things.
You also bring up something I didn't think about this, and this plays into what you do too, Jonathan, is that we do a lot of videos, and when we do these recruitment videos and we're interviewing these candidates, or not candidates, the workers and the hiring managers, when we're asking about what they like about the job, they're having to basically articulate what it is that they like about that particular job on video. We end up getting so much data from that. We end up finding out so many things from that. If someone is hesitant about doing any kind of video interviews, I know there's a lot of recruiters that are hesitant about doing being on camera and showing up on camera. they're somewhat hesitant about even asking people to interview. What would you say to that, Jonathan? Because I know you do this literally I shouldn't say 7 days a week, but you do it a lot.
It is, Rollis, it's 7 days a week. Okay. Do I look like I've slept this year?
Yes, I'm going to say yes, you do. You do look like you slept. I'm not going to say
okay.
Come on.
Yeah. I think that, first and foremost, I love the topic because we are recognizing that, with this whole thing that you're talking about, this great resignation, it's not about the pay. It's not about, the job title. It's not about the position. It's not about the industry. It's about like, are these people happy? Or do these people love what they do? Are they content with their work? And I think that that's kind of like it's a slippery slope, right? Yes, I'm glad that there's so much, prosperity in this country where that is our chief concern right now is the work environment where I want to be, is what I do, is the direction that I'm taking in my life right now, is this what I want to be doing with myself? I would just say, like if somebody's trying to articulate that message, it needs to align. And I think a lot of people need to really be honest with themselves. I'm a little bit hesitant to share my thoughts on that because I do feel like for the most part, there's always going to be that crowd of people that love what they do and they do find satisfaction. But overall, I think, finding like really meaningful work, let me just be very transparent. I'm like beating around a bush. Right now, I'm living my dream job. Right? This is what I always wanted to do. This is exactly what I love to do. But I'm finding that even doing the very thing that fuels me the most, I have bad days.
Yeah.
I have days where I do not feel inspired. I have days that I'm tired. And I almost wish I was doing the accounting work again, because at least that monotony was like I knew exactly what to expect and it was the same every day, where now it's a lot more chaos, right? But this is what I always wanted to do. So I would just challenge people, like really consider your day, really consider, am I happy? Am I happy with what I'm doing? Because sometimes that whole grass is greener scenario, there's a lot of truth to it. So yeah, I would just, I'd challenge people to reevaluate. And if you're going to be creating video content around what it is that you do today, you may have some downloads about it, maybe realize some things about yourself that maybe who you are and what you really want to do is closer aligned to what you're doing currently than you thought.
Very interesting. Okay, now I have a question for both of you. Would you rather, if you had to choose, low ambitions and succeed, or high ambitions but fail? Which one would you go with? Rachel, how about you? In the comments, I want you to answer the same thing. Would you rather go with low ambitions and succeed, or high ambitions but fail?
I guess part of it is I don't know any other way to be than to have high ambition. I feel like if I had low ambition and wasn't energized by what I was doing, but I was being successful, I feel like I'd have a sense of misalignment, and I wouldn't necessarily feel like I was living from a place of integrity. This is just like my head answer. But if I had high ambition and I was going for it and I was trying and I was putting myself out there and I was dreaming big and I was failing, failing's a relative judgment anyway.
Yeah.
I could still be learning from those failings, and I think ultimately there would be wins. So I would much rather feel alive and purposeful. This is how I interpret high ambition. I would much rather be in that place and allow myself to learn when I'm in those valleys. Yeah. Not that I would like it necessarily. I'm not saying I'd be like, I like succeeding. I like when I win. So exactly. The easy thing is like, oh, low ambition, just get all these wins. But I feel like I could live with myself with a greater sense of integrity if I came from a place of high ambition or big dreams and they didn't all work out the way that I wanted to in the time that I wanted to.
Yeah, Rollis, could you repeat it again?
So would you rather have low ambitions and be succeed, or high ambitions but fail?
I feel like high ambitions but fail is absolutely beautiful. I think it is such a beautiful thing, because for me, it's like you shoot for the stars. Maybe you don't reach the stars, but at least you get to the clouds, right? I feel like there's so much beauty in that. There's so much that we could do with it in between, because there is so much space between high ambitions and failure in my own mind. And like Rachel had said, there's little wins along the way, right? But my favorite humans, my favorite people, and we all know them, they are the absolutely most delusional human beings in the world that believe that they're going to be the next president. They believe that they're going to be famous. And you know what? Like some of those fools, man, they actually get it done.
That's
true.
They
actually do it. But I love delusion, because the reality is, for some of those ambitions that we have, it takes a healthy degree of delusion to accomplish it. You will have people every day that tell you who you can be and who you can't be, what you can succeed and what you can't. You know, myself, Shay, Rachel, there's plenty of people that have put ideas in our heads about who we are and what we're going to be able to do. And if we would have listened to it, we wouldn't have gotten where we are today. I'm not where I want to be. And Shay's not where she wants to be. And I'm sure Rachel has ambitions that are much higher. We may fail at. The reality is we may not reach every goal that we set out for ourselves. But to have those high ambitions and fail anyways, I'm not mad at myself. At least I went after it. At least I tried. Yeah. If I fail, I can at least sit with the experiences, and I'm closer than I was yesterday. So low ambitions, it's almost like you didn't live up to your potential. And that's a conversation you have to have with God one day. Hey, why didn't you do more? I gave you more. Why didn't you go for more? Look at all these wins I presented in front of you. Why didn't you do more with it? And that's not a conversation I want to be having. So, yeah.
You know what? You got me convinced. I think I agree with you. Now, Sana Khan says, low ambition and succeed. I would love to hear your explanation as to why you chose that. Thank you for putting that in the comments. I appreciate that. Why did you pick low ambition and succeed? Joanne says, high ambition but failed to get motivated. I agree. I agree with you.
Rachel, I want your perspective on this, because again, like, you know, between Rollis, myself, Rachel, high achievers, very ambitious people. But I would almost argue, and Rachel, you'd know better than both of us, most people operate from the low ambition, higher success rate because it's the safer alternative. I feel like most of society, most people within society operate from that space because they'd rather be safe than take a risk and get burned in the process.
Yeah.
So I do feel like naturally, most of the people that would be talking or having a conversation here are the types that take those chances, as opposed to most of society who would fall into the other category. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think of today, right? Like 2 years ago today, I bet on myself, right? I left a 6-figure job at a company that I probably could have stayed at for a while, and continued to grow and expand and speak and do all of these things and ride on the coattails of a growing organization. But there was something in me that was like, no, like you're meant to do this your own way. And I decided to, after 7 years of thinking about it, let's be honest there for a second, after 7 years of wanting to do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have done that.
Finally made the move.
Yeah.
But I think we do choose, I think, well, part of it is how are we even defining success? Because I have a business coach I work with, and he says that success is basically just increasing the degrees of freedom that you have in your life, freedom of time, freedom of movement, financial freedom. And so, I think, and even success in sense of what, you got another promotion, you made a lot of money, but no, I think broadening the definition of success to like having thriving relationships and, being in a healthy body where your mental and physical health are aligned. I think part of it is just, it's also important to expand and open up what we're even talking about when we're saying success, because so often it just gets trapped in this business sense or bank account.
Absolutely. Sana, she explained, she says, I would be so mad at myself if I put my heart and soul and blood in something and fail at it. It would be so demotivating. So I can definitely understand her point of view, and it makes sense. I'm still going to stick with high ambition and fail, because I do that anyway. I have high ambition and I fail a lot, but I feel like when I'm learning, I'm succeeding, right? If I fail, I learn something from the failure, and in that sense, I am succeeding. So that's why I think
and I love it.
Yeah,
I love it because it comes full circle. I remember when we started this conversation, what word did I say I hate, I detest?
Motivation.
I hate the word motivation for that very reason. What would it be? It'd become demotivating. That's why we don't tie any result to motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It's in a moment. It lasts in a bubble. You're not always motivated to do things, right?
Right.
But if you understand, this is being resilient.
Yeah.
It's all coming together beautifully. Being resilient. You do not attach yourself with motivation, things that could potentially demotivate us. Just stick it out.
Yeah. Let's all celebrate Rachel's 2-year anniversary, and we're gonna celebrate with the folks in the cheap seats right there. See there? No, I'm really glad you made that decision. You know, really glad that you did that, because look how many other people you are inspiring and helping now with what you're doing with the speaking with the different teams and different organizations that you're helping now. So I appreciate you doing that. Oh, Patty, my friend Patty came in. She says, always great messages. Thank you, Patty. She is a nurse leader here in the greater Houston area. She's a CNO executive, CNO of a large system here in Houston. So thank you for what you do, Patty. Appreciate you. Okay, so I want to be respectful. I know we started late. I want to be respectful of you guys' time. I want to thank both of you for coming on. Jonathan, I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but you can tell us, whoever would like to know how to make better videos, no matter what industry you're in or whatever you're doing, what should they do, Jonathan?
Make better videos. What's the one piece of advice? Oh,
contact
man,
you.
That's a tough one. They could, but I want to give them something tangible too. Okay. Yeah. I'd say the one piece of advice, and this really relates to anybody that could be coming through the door, make sure it's what you really want to do. Don't do it just because you see the analytics and you see do it because you really feel like this is something that you could do long term, because the reality is, just like motivation, inevitably you will get tired of this thing. But if you love it, if you're passionate about it, if you grew up watching, sports commentators, personalities, if you love celebrities, if you love this idea of being on camera, I'd encourage you to do it. But if it does not align with you, you could create video, you could create text posts, you could do a bunch of different you could write articles. Just find that one thing that you really love to do and create content around that. If you do want to reach me, I'm probably tagged somewhere in this post. So just reach out on LinkedIn, connect with me, and we could have a conversation.
Absolutely. Do that. I took y'all's course and got a lot of benefit from it. I use a lot of the principles and things that you guys taught, and I love doing those weekly meetings you guys have too. It really helps.
Yes.
Cool stuff. Rachel, so what should folks do to link up with you? Maybe have you come speak at their organization. What would you? And if you want to leave a tip like Jonathan, you can do that too.
Yeah. Sure. So I would say tip first, I encourage people to remind themselves of a time in the past where they've gotten through something difficult that at the time they weren't sure how they were going to overcome it. And to just write yourself a note of encouragement and to say, I'm proud of you for making it through this, and to remind yourself of what were the lessons that you learned as a result of that. Because we all have a history of resilience. Everyone's been through difficult things. I've met no one ever who has gotten through life unscathed. And so if you can remind yourself of the strength that you've had in moments of difficulty and adversity, that can help you get through the current struggle that you're facing right now.
Oh, I like that.
So that's my tip. To get in touch with me, you can message me here on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, which is unmutedlife.com. I've got podcast episodes that I've been on and blog posts I've written and other things about the work I do. And then if you're an Instagrammer, I'm also on Instagram at unmutedlife. So those are the three ways. Pick your poison.
Awesome. And I still have it in the hopper. I haven't released it yet on LinkedIn. I've still got that in the hopper where you and Jonathan had a great conversation. Y'all went more into y'all's background. So you just never know. You may see that come up on LinkedIn, guys. Joanne says success does not come in the first attempt. That's what we need to try until we succeed. Thank you for that, Joanne. Appreciate that. I would be remiss if we close out without hearing that beautiful voice, Rachel, because we always need to lean on each other in times of need. And I know you've got a song for us. Give us about a minute of it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure thing. So this is a song I think is a reminder for all of us that we don't get through difficult things on our own, and a reminder for us to lean on each other. So here we go. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain. We all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. We all need somebody to lean on. There you go.
I love that. I love that. And even the audience, they love it too. I'm seeing the applause everywhere. Amazing. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
That was great. That was great.
Appreciate you.
So guys, in the comments, let us know if you're watching live or replay. We'd love to hear what you have to say, what resonated with you and what we talked about today. Any questions you have, we'll be sure and read those as time goes on. Thank you for joining us today. Let's say bye to everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, I'm going to hit the end stream just a second here. Oh, look at that. All right, cool.